Egyptians are hoarding food and water.
A bit different. It's a bit
Hang on,
different there.
Aaron, please, hold on. I want to move this because Bob mentioned something very, very important. He mentioned natural gas. Let's talk about this for a second. Banks are closed. ATMs are empty. The country's at a standstill. How long can a paralyzed Egypt sustain itself, and how long before it starts to affect other countries like us? Let's bring in Peter Schiff, CEO of Euro Pacific Precious Metals. Peter, specifically, I want to ask you a question. I noticed this, and I'm not sure why no one else has really noticed this, but on Friday, oil jumped almost $4 a barrel, $3.85 a barrel. Natural gas was down. There's only one reason for that. They're both fuels. They're both fuels heavily used in the United States, but in the case of oil, 60-something% of our oil is purchased from outside the U.S., almost all of our natural gas is produced right here. Am I missing this? What's the difference between the two?
Well, and also you can't export the natural gas. It's much easier to ship oil around the world, so it's much more sensitive to a global market. Natural gas markets are more local. But, Eric, I was just looking at a chart of the CRB. This is not just energy. Look at that breakout today in the CRB. We're up 1.5%. We took out some serious overhead resistance that's been building for the last month in commodity prices. This is a 2.5-year high almost in the CRB. We have got a real global inflation problem.
Right.
And it's going to get worse. And there's only two ways to stop it. Either the Federal Reserve has to do an about-face. We have to stop the quantitative easing, stop the stimulus, raise interest rates, or the world's got to dump the dollar.
We will get to that. The dollar discussion in a minute, but this is very important. Smitty, you and I go back and forth on this in the hallways. We're arguing, yelling. Natural gas hasn't moved. Oil is up now $7 since this conflict started, and natural gas has flatlined.
Okay.
We don't import our natural gas.
So no, of course we don't. But you can't send natural gas over the ocean. It doesn't exist.
Right.
You cannot do it.
And
these are global markets. However, natural gas is not just priced based on what's happening in the United States. This is a global market.
I don't care what's happening over there. I care what I'm paying for natural gas to heat my home.
All I'm saying is Egypt has become a major producer recently.
So what?
Of natural gas.
So what?
It's a fear trade, Eric. Anytime we see these markets go up, it's not based on fundamentals
why aren't the
always.
natural gas traders playing the fear trade if the crude oil traders are playing the fear trade? Go ahead, Bob.
Because it's a very small percentage of the world's natural gas. And the reason we don't have it here is we've got more natural gas than we know what to do with. We've got about 80% of our...
we have enough oil, too.
We should drill more. In fact, we can get into that at a later point. We ought to be running on natural gas. But listen, this commodities rate that this gentleman was talking about. Commodities were on the upswing well before this happened in Israel. The prices of food, the price of wheat, particularly, the price of oil, all this stuff was on the upswing because developing countries have not suffered as much and not rebounded more quickly off of the Great Recession than the industrialized world.
Or do you think that maybe the price of corn, the price of soybean, the price of sugar, the price of coffee, all the prices have been going up because the price of oil is going up? And it's going up from, by the way, Bob, $33 a barrel in January when Mr. Obama was sworn in to $91 a barrel now.
Well, what we always
prices are going up because the value of money is going down.
Wait, Peter, hold on.
What we always leave out is the cost of transportation and how do you transport goods. Most of it moves by something powered by a petroleum product. So oil affects the transportation, affects the food price,
and on
a worldwide scale, that's
when
big.
there's going to be more people on the planet, we're going to consume more energy, we're going to consume more food.
But Smitty, you still haven't told me why natural gas prices
But those people are going to produce more energy.
What does that have to do with anything? Natural gas is one of the most volatile markets in the world.
You're not seeing this. Schiff, stay up. I don't want to talk about the dollar right now. Let's talk about oil. Let's talk about natural gas. If we were to drill all 20 million barrels a day that we use right here in America, which we very well could, would the price be going up every time there's an Arabic fist pump going on in the Middle East? No, it wouldn't. Am I wrong?
If we had greater domestic supplies of gasoline, the prices wouldn't fluctuate as much based on disruptions abroad. But, even if we drilled a lot more oil here, a lot of it would be exported. Eventually, when the dollar does go down, America is actually going to go from an oil importer to an oil exporter because we're going to use a lot less oil because we're going to be feeding the global demand for oil by not using it ourselves.
We import 67% of the oil here in the United States. T. Boone
problem.
Pickens just said on the record on the Fox Business Network, 10 years, we're importing 75% of our oil.
No. When the dollar collapses,
time
we're
out.
going to
No
be an
offense,
exporter.
no offense
We're not
to
going to be able to afford it.
No offense to T-Bone, but what does he know? He lost $2 billion trying to invest in wind energy. Aaron Klein, before I let you go, what do you think of all this? I mean, you're right there, smack dab in the middle of the oil basket of the world. What's going on there?
I think that this could really be similar to the Islamic Revolution of 1979. It's too early to say, but again, this is not isolated to Egypt. This is a region-wide issue with the Muslim Brotherhood, with Islamists leading these, or at least behind the protests. And this could be what the Muslim Brotherhood has been waiting for, and that is to start their Islamic caliphate in Egypt, expand it to the Hamas-controlled Muslim Brotherhood-allied Gaza Strip, then throughout other parts of the Middle East, and eventually, who knows?
Look, the Muslim Brotherhood is extremely savvy when it comes to geopolitical affairs. They've got Hamas in Syria. Look at what's happened in Tunisia. Look at what's happening in Yemen. They know how to come in through soft power, insert themselves. They get into the coalition government. Next thing you know, we have change.
If they had a free and open election in Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood wouldn't get 20% of the vote.
They somehow seem to keep doing this.
Now, wait a
Bob.
minute. They wouldn't get 20% of the vote. You think that you're suggesting here that you're going to see an Iran kind of a situation happening in Egypt? It ain't going to happen. And the
Bob,
other thing,
I'm not going to Iran. I'm going
if I could just
today.
point out that there's 400 million people who've been lifted out of poverty in the last 10 years. They're using a lot of commodities. It's not the price of oil that's making wheat go up. It is the demand on wheat. And frankly, the United States is a great spot.
And the price.
Hey, Pete, I'm sorry, we'll get to you in 1 second.
Well, we've seen this before. We've seen it in the past.
Schiff.
With Islamists taking control.
All right, Peter Schiff, is it demand or is it we'll get to it now, the flooding of the American dollars in the world market?
Well, it's both. I mean, as I said earlier, it's not prices rising, it's money losing value. When money goes down in value, prices have to rise. That's happening. But, $7 a barrel in oil, I mean, that's not even a spike. I mean, we're talking about $90 oil. I mean, remember when Saddam Hussein went into Kuwait and oil went from $20 a barrel to $40 a barrel almost overnight? I mean, that's a price spike. All we're seeing
But you got to remember, this is a rolling show, so it's got to be made exciting.
Listen, I was in the trading pits when that happened. By the way, Peter, it went back to $25 a barrel.
Yeah, but that was
within
a
a very
spike.
short period,
What we've
a couple
seen,
days.
Yeah, but what we've seen so far, this is just a rally in a bull market. Maybe this is the catalyst, but the market's been going up.
We can drill more oil, but there's only so much land in the United States and in the world. And when you look at corn prices that you remember historically used to sit around $2.50 a bushel,
corn prices
we're never going to see those prices again. Remember
Yeah, but
when
we've
beans
had
went
QE1
to
and QE2.
If anybody believes that Eric Goldman's right, you could drill 20 million barrels a day. You believe in the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, we absolutely could.
Ridiculous.
We're going to have to leave it there. We're going to say thank you to Aaron Klein, as always. How will Egypt affect the markets this week? One commodity that may benefit big time from Cairo chaos. The Fox Business Network, Smitty. The power to prosper. Okay. The crisis in the Middle East is already affecting oil prices, gold prices, and other commodities, but it could put more emphasis on an alternative energy like nuclear. Joining me now is Amir Adnani, Uranium Energy Corp CEO. Peter Schiff is still with us. Thank you, sir, for joining us, Mr. Adnani. Talk to us about uranium. I've been a follower of uranium for the better part of 20 years. It kind of tracks the oil price. I remember it spiking in 2008. What has happened since?
Just recently, Eric, there's been a lot of upward pressure on uranium prices. Clean energy generated from uranium is being embraced around the world. And since I was on your show last on September 30th, uranium prices are up about 60%. And you look at the CRB index for commodities, and that's probably up about 15% in the same period.
So give us a sense. Yeah. You said 60% since September. Is that
Correct.
What you said?
Correct.
And where does that put us on, say, like maybe a 5-year average? Are we substantially higher than we were 3 to 5 years ago?
No, not at all. In fact, we're not anywhere near the all-time high. If we look at the uranium prices in 2007, prices reached $138 a pound. Today, prices are at $70 per pound. We're not anywhere near the all-time high. However, in 2007, that market had a lot more speculation in it. Today, uranium prices are definitely moving higher on the back of fundamental demand. It's a demand-driven pressure on the price. And that's what's moving it higher.
All right, sir, we have a lot to get to. I want to just ask you, Price per kilowatt hour uranium versus other inputs, oil, natural gas, etc. Where does it stand?
I mean, on a BTU basis, if you look at the energy generated and the percentage of fuel cost for generating a BTU of energy, nuclear would be, fuel cost for nuclear would be maybe 4% or 5%, so substantially lower than natural gas and coal-fired power plant. Okay. So with nuclear, not only do you have a situation where it's the lowest cost way of generating a kilowatt of electricity, but it is emission-free, it is large-scale, and it is reliable.
Right. Hang in there. Hang in there. I'm a big fan of this, Bob, but here's a problem. A lot of the administrations, all of them, it's bipartisan on this, are reluctant to offer these permits. The permitting process for a nuclear power plant reactor is insane. The money, the time,
the world has changed. I mean, there's no longer any strong political opposition to nuclear power plants. Number one. Number two, they are easier. They are much better to build today. They're safer than they were. Look at France. Even the French, who can't do anything right, got 20% of their power out of nuclear power plants. There's no reason we can't do that.
Substantially more than
well, but the point is that is something that ought to be put in the mix. You can get it done, but here's what's holding it up. Republicans refuse to allow the government to guarantee the loans to build them.
I don't know about that.
No,
I'm not sure.
You may say you don't know about it. I'm telling you it's true.
I'm not going partisan here, but you said one thing. There's no strong opposition to it. Problem is, there's no strong proponent of it. We send
Joe Biden's pretty strong.
Jeff Immelt takes a little plane ride to India, and he goes over there, and he's going to build civilian nuclear in India. But we're not doing it here. We have got to get proponents of it going here. Look, Scanacorp, Niagara Power, all these different groups, they want to build.
This is a huge long-term bullish story, though. If you're looking at uranium, there's a lot of companies that are just shutting down operations right now so they can go off and explore for new production. But the problem, Eric, is nothing's going to come online for a lot of these companies till 2020.
It takes a long time.
EPA regulations.
Hey, Schiff, what do you think of nuclear, Peter?
Well, look, I mean, I'm a big proponent of it. I mean, we have investments. Look at Cameco today, which is the largest uranium producer here trading on the New York Stock Exchange. Set a 52-week high today. It's still maybe about $10 below the peak back in the speculative phase of back in 07, 08. But look, people are going to be moving to nuclear, not just in the United States, all around the world. And the bottom line is the uranium is such a small percentage of the cost of production that no matter how high uranium prices go, it's not going to be a deterrent to nuclear energy. So there's a lot of room for uranium prices to rise.
Let me ask Mr. Adnani. Mr. Adnani, if I have 6 people on the panel today between you, Peter, everyone's in agreement, uranium, what's the drawback? How come we only produce about 18% of our power? And as Bob points out, I think France is, what, 80%?
France is 80%, and, you know, here's an interesting way of looking at it. Obviously, you were talking earlier about the developments in Egypt and the Middle East right now. The genesis of France's nuclear expansion program was the oil embargo and the energy crisis of the 1970s. It was a long-term story, though. France started on the basis of energy security to develop its nuclear fleet during that period, and today 80% of France's electricity is generated through nuclear power.
Electricity.
Yeah, it is.
So it is electricity. It's 20% of its overall power demand. Okay.
But 85% of its electricity.
But listen, there'll be more permits issued in this year under the Obama administration. There hasn't been any since 1960 or 77. There'll be a lot of them. A lot of them will be starting to be online and be constructed. You're going to see nuclear as a big part of this.
Here's the thing. You can issue all the permits you want, but until you get the EPA, the regulations, the environmental, the green lobby, and the cap and trade issues
what do you think a permit is? It's getting through the EPA and the rest of it.
It takes 15 years after that to get through.
We are out of time, but Mr. Adnani, isn't it also the structure, the actual building of the reactor that needs to be go through all the permit process as well? Can't they just find one permit, one construction plan that works for everyone going forward?
Well, look, let's look at it in 2 ways. Okay, first of all, there has been very fundamental and positive progress in the U.S. towards embracing a program for expanding nuclear capacity. Last year, $54 billion were ratified by Congress for providing loan guarantees for 8 new reactors in the U.S. This is a step forward, although the rate at which it's happening may not be as rapid as, let's say, China and India. China has 26 reactors under construction and plans for another 100. The rate of licensing here by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission surely will put things on a bit of a slower pace, but there's progress being made, and the fact that $54 billion was earmarked towards developing nuclear reactors is a positive.
Right.
The fact that last year, first reactor went under construction in the U.S. by Southern Energy. First one in over 25 years. That's a step forward.
I'd love to keep going, guys, but we're running out of time. We're coming up against the hard break. Going to say thank you to Amir Adnani, Peter Schiff, and Bob Beckel. Up next in today's Corruption Matrix, global warming, climate change, just maybe.